everybody, it's Ashley Ray from letstalkraystyle.com. Welcome to Ashley Ray TV. So today's video is going to be kind of a mashup. Originally it was supposed to discuss Black activism, its current state and what's happening. So we're going to start with that. So here we go. Okay, so I wrote a blog which is posted on letstalkraystyle.com, and if you'd like to go read that blog, it is in the description. But the main reason that made me want to discuss this is because Tamir Rice's mother, Samira Rice, made a very, powerful statement. And it was something that I had been thinking about anyway, regarding Tamika Mallory and Ben Crump. So we all know that Tamir Rice was killed by the police at the age of 12 in Cleveland, Ohio. Nothing ever happened to that officer. So Tamika Mallory and Ben Crump are usually the people who are kind of like dispatched and on it right away when it comes to police brutality or any crime against Black people, particularly when involving death. And Samira Rice's post basically said, "Fuck a Grammy when my son is dead." And that comes from Tamika Mallory being on the Grammys, kind of performing. Before she performed on the Grammys, she was actually on Love and Hip Hop, New York, talking about how everyone needs to be involved with the cause, etc. And I get it. I'm like, okay, this is another platform, but is it really necessary? It was just something that crossed my mind. And also in the summertime, during the trial against the police officers that had killed Breonna Taylor, there was some audio brought to my attention from a young man that was working hand in hand with the investigators on the trial and putting together the evidence against the police officers. One of the things that stuck out to me in the recording was he was very upset. He was saying, you haven't been doing what you said you were going to do. You've been doing nothing but being in meetings with Tamika Mallory and Ben Crump all day, right? So that was kind of triggering to me. He's like, you didn't bring up, the evidence that we found of them moving furniture around after Breonna was already dead. And so he was basically telling the man that he was calling him to the carpet, telling him, you didn't do the things that you said you were going to do. You're over here chasing clout, right? So that's how Samira Rice feels. She feels that they are just chasing clout. They don't actually get anything done or anything significant other than attach their names to these dead Black people. In Samira Rice's case, her dead Black child, her son, who was only 12 years old, and you don't really help. You're just collecting this money and building a larger platform for yourself. With that being said, that made me think about the activists of our past and how would things be working now? And more importantly, has Ben Crump ever won a case? And I'm not trying to be funny, but realistically, he's never won a case as far as I know. And from my understanding, the families never reach out to these people. They reach out to the families. And so it's if you're not actually helping, if you're not actually holding the people accountable that we should be holding accountable, if we're not putting the pressure on them, we're just building our platform, then that's self-serving. So it just makes me question a lot of things. And then someone posted how Tamika Mallory and some other activists make $2 million. And I don't have a problem with them making money because they are sacrificing time, which you can never put a price on, away from their own families. And they do a lot of travel, a lot of speaking engagements, etc. So I'm sure they get paid for some of these things. And I'm sure they all have a nonprofit, which you actually do profit from, especially if you have all these expenditures. So I understand that, but I understand in the same token how it seems to be very self-serving and not moving us, the people, forward. And I start thinking about like how Malcolm X died poor, basically. Not basically. He definitely died poor, especially after being cut off from the NOI, right? But we know that Malcolm X was not a self-serving human being at all. Someone else brought up Martin Luther King Jr. and I was like, well, he wasn't poor because he was in the bed with the government and the government was paying him. And when he decided he didn't want to be in bed with the government anymore, then they killed him. So he was never poor, or in his adult life. I'm not speaking on his childhood, but I'm just saying specifically during the time of his activism, he was not poor. In fact, his family vacationed at the same location as the president of the United States at that time. And that's a fact. So, then we have our Marcus Garvey, which is one of my faves. We actually share a birthday. And I'm just like, wow, this does look very suspicious. And what bothered me the most is that Tamika Mallory and Sean King were basically trying to go back and forth with Samira Rice on social media. And Samira Rice plainly put in Sean King's comments, call me. Like he put up a post saying that, Tamika Mallory allocated all funds appropriately regarding the Tamira Rice situation. But let me be clear that Samira Rice was not the only mother to say this. It was her, and I cannot think of the other lady's name. It was like 3 of them. And they're like, oh, they're not going to call you because they know what you're saying is the truth. Now, this was a conversation in between the mothers. From my understanding, he never called her. I actually reached out to Samira Rice myself just to, not on a media tip, but I literally just told her, like, because she has a foundation in Tamira Rice's name. And I told her that I don't have a large platform, but anything that I can do, if you need a GoFundMe or whatever for the foundation, I'd be more than willing to, post about it, start it, whatever. I didn't get a response back, but I understand because she feels burned by her own community. What they should have done was addressed her personally. Sean King should have called her, or someone should have called her. And then Tamika Mallory makes a post about what happened to actual journalism, this cancel culture of whatever someone says is what it is and people are canceling them. Now, I do agree with cancel culture being out of control. But in this situation, this is very serious. This is bigger than cancel culture. Someone is accusing you of misappropriating the case of her son, how it was perpetuated, and everything in between. Like, I would think if someone was accusing me of that, I would be like, listen, I want to talk to you because I want to know what I can do better. That's what should have happened. It should have been a conversation of, how do you feel that I could have served or helped you in a better way? Because just because you think it's a good way for someone doesn't mean it actually is, or that they feel that it was a good way of serving them. And that's just the reality of it. Everybody is not going to be happy, but instead of taking somewhat constructive criticism, you turn it into a back and forth situation on social media. So I definitely lost some respect for for Sean King and Tamika Mallory. I just feel like that was very inappropriate for them to do, and they don't know her grief, no matter how close they were to the situation. They didn't have their child's body in a morgue for almost a year because she thought that they would need his body for evidence at some point. They didn't have to move out of their home because they felt uncomfortable due to it being so close to where their son was murdered. Like, these are things that Samira Rice actually did. She actually left her son's body in the morgue for almost a year. She actually moved out of her home because it was too close to where her son was murdered. So I don't know that grief. Tamika doesn't know that grief. Sean King doesn't know that grief. We can relate on a human level, and because we are Black people and these things are happening to us, we're being slaughtered by the police with no repercussion. But we don't know that grief and we don't know that pain personally. So I just think that they should have just addressed that in a different way. So I'm actually very unsure about how I feel about either one of them as far as black activism goes. And that goes for Ben Crump too, because like I said, you know, here's the reality of the situation. At some point, everybody knows who they are. Everybody knows who Tamika Mallory is. Everyone knows who Ben Crump is. Everyone knows who Shaun King is. So the question is, are these people in cahoots with the establishment to a certain degree as to where they know that these trials are a waste of time because the officers aren't going to go to prison, but they're still going to get their pay and they're still going to get their publicity? This is just a question. I'm not accusing anyone of anything. I really sincerely, with all my heart, hope that that is not the case, because that would be absolutely devastating to a community who is constantly traumatized, tricked, manipulated, and hurt every single day. So, will we ever have activists like Malcolm X again? Like Marcus Garvey? Like Medgar Evers? Like Shirley Chisholm? Will we? I don't know. All right, so the next topic is police brutality as a whole. Now, if you don't know, last week or 2 weeks ago, I posted a video about my encounter with a police officer in Detroit that had a very nasty demeanor, and it was just bad. But all of these things have happened within 2 weeks involving the police, and it's just like, what the fuck? Like, not what the fuck, because we already know. Our skin color is seen as a immediate threat. So, no, the person doesn't have to have a gun, because they're going to shoot and kill you anyway, because just your mere existence, just how I look, just how I sound alone is enough for a police officer to murder me, to shoot me, period. And they keep proving it time and time again. And I have my notes here because I wanted to make sure I touched on everything that I needed to touch on. Oh, I sold these, by the way. This is my adaptation of Zora Neale Hurston, who is one of my favorite authors. And if you like this journal, you can purchase one on letstalkracestyle.com and select shop. There are other journals there as well. Anywho, so let's start with Carol Horn. Carol Horn was a police officer for Buffalo, the Buffalo Police Department in the state of New York. She stopped a man from choking a 15-year-old to death who he had already had in handcuffs. So he's already in handcuffs and he's choking him. She disrupted that because she's like, he looks like he's going to die. So they fired her, and she's been suing them since 2008 to receive her full pension, because they fired her maybe like 2 months before she was to receive her pension benefits. And here we are, 2021. Let's keep that in mind. This happened in 2008. It is 2021, and this woman is just now getting her just due. People are just now starting to hear about it. I think I heard about this case last year, but she's just now being able to get her pension. 2008. This is, and just the rigmarole behind that is systematic racism. And people just don't get how deep it is. But that was a story of success for this week. A black female officer in 2008 stopped a white man from choking out a 15-year-old black boy that was in handcuffs, and she was fired. She was awarded her pension. So I did want to stress that. The next thing. So this Derek Chiffon, or whatever his last name is, I don't even care if I'm pronouncing it right or wrong, trial for him killing George Floyd is a whole mess. First of all, how much backpedaling can the defense do? And who paid the medical examiner to say all of what he said? Because it was clearly BS. And he actually backpedaled on a couple of things that he said. At the end of the day, everybody knows that this man is guilty. People watched that video. It's no way, I'm not even going to get into that. But you know what? You know what the state of Minnesota is doing? They're dispatching the National Guards because they expect it to be some chaos after the verdict. Closing statements are being given on Monday. So they expect that there'll be, some protesting, potential rowdy protesters or rioters. And can you guys tell me where the National Guards were when white people were storming the Capitol with elected officials in it? Where were they? They were told not to use force. But I'm going to do a recap on that in just a second. Dante Wright, another black man killed by the police in Brooklyn Center, Minnesota, which is not far from where George Floyd was killed. So that's another reason why they're dispatching the National Guards, because they know that that city is on fire right now. And the police in Brooklyn Center, Minnesota, are very aggressive. They have been beating and pepper spraying the media, which is against the law. You're not supposed to prevent the media from being there. They are just doing whatever it is that they want to do. And, rightfully so, I guess, because they're the rabbit with the gun, right? So it's kind of like they can do, not kind of, they do whatever it is that they want to do. They've been proving that to us, back to back. And it's just amazing. And in the Dante Wright killing, Kim Potter is the police officer that killed him, said that she thought she grabbed her taser and not her gun. Ma'am, you've been on the police force for 25 years and you expect me or any other person with an inkling of common sense to believe that you thought your heavy ass Glock, because that's what police officers carry. That's not funny, but it's just like, stop insulting my intelligence. You're trying to tell me that you thought that heavy ass Glock was a taser? No, you didn't. No, you didn't. You didn't think that at all. You thought it was a gun and you shot him, because that's what y'all do. And here's the thing. White people want to talk about how, you should just listen to the police. I mean, she told him to stop. Guess what? Not listening to the police does not equal murder. Running away from the police does not equal murder. Driving without a license does not equal murder. Driving with or without a tag should not equal murder. The problem is white people as a whole think that they still own black people. Therefore, when someone that is white is telling a black person what to do, they have a whole problem. Like, well, why aren't you listening? What do you mean? What do you mean? Why? If he would have just listened, guess what? You don't own anyone. You don't own anyone. And that's what you need to know. That's what you gotta know. You don't own anyone, and people do not have to do what you say do. And just to switch on topics really quickly, that's a perfect example of the young man in South Carolina walking down the street and the white guy comes out his house and is checking him and trying to tell him what to do. You don't own him, sir. That's what the problem is. You think that black people owe you an apology. In all honesty, we don't owe you shit but an ass whooping. And that's real. Anyhow, so yes, when people get to talking about how, I don't understand why they're not doing what the police told them to do. Well, he had a warrant out. A warrant does not equal a person's death. You can have a warrant out for not paying a ticket on your license. That does not equal death. Why is it wrong that we don't feel that government officials should be able to murder citizens? Black citizens, minority citizens, because black and brown people are pulled over and addressed by the cops way more often than white people. This is a statistical fact. And guess what? When white people get pulled over, they usually give them the benefit of the doubt or whatever it is they say and keep going. So it's not even a fair comparison. And reading these comments from these people, like, it's very frustrating, but at the same time, I really like to know how people really feel. So yeah, you really feel like my life is not worth a single thing. My father's life is not worth anything. You don't think black people's lives matter. You don't think that it's worth anything. You think that buildings, banks, and property are worth more than black lives. And that's why you're always talking about peaceful protesting and rioting and, well, we don't want anyone to riot. Fuck your buildings. Fuck your banks. Fuck your property. Listen, if things continue to go the way that they're going, this country is going to get burned down to the ground. And guess what? Black people will not be building this place back up again. We will not. We will not. We won't. And that's another thing that you need to know. Has anyone ever thought about how protests never get violent until the police show up? You're not our saviors. You're our oppressors. Period. Next, Adam Toledo. So this happened in March of this year in Chicago, Illinois. A 13-year-old boy was gunned down by Chicago PD. And originally, you know what they said. Oh, he had a gun and he dropped it seconds before shots were fired. When body cams were released, guess what? He absolutely had nothing in his hands. In fact, his hands were held up just like this when he was shot. I put up this audio that is basically recording the Chicago Police Department or the police officer stating that fires have been shot. And the operator says shots were fired by police, correct? Correct. So they dispatched that over. 8 minutes later, its instructions were, everyone on the scene, turn your body cams off. Turn your body cams off. Turn your body cams off. Everybody turn your body cams off. Why? Why are you turning your body cams off? Why are you giving those instructions? The damage is done, first of all. But you don't want us to hear what you actually have to say and how you really don't give a fuck about people in the community that you are serving. Because if you did, these things would not be an issue the way that it is. I'm tired of it. I really am. And I hope everyone's seen the video of the lieutenant being pulled over in Virginia. Oh, yes. Okay. So this is what happened. There's a lieutenant that's in the Army with his Army gear on. We all know that there are bases in Virginia. He has his dog in the car. It looks like the car is a black Escalade. So he has a tag in the window, but the police couldn't see it. So they tell him to pull over, put his hands up, put his hands out the car. They're giving him several different directions. So they give you all of these different confusing directions so that when you make the wrong move, like try to get your license, they kill you, saying that they thought you had a gun because you reached for something in the car. But the whole time they told you to get your license. So anyhow, the lieutenant, which is the civilian in this scenario, asks, why are you pulling me over? They told him to get out the car. Why are you? He's like, and I'm scared to get out the car. Actually, the officer said, you should be scared. Oh, wow. So then he's really like, I'm not getting out. He's like, I'm a lieutenant. You know, he's telling them, I'm a lieutenant in the Army. And he's like, oh yeah, I was in the Army too. That's all the more reason why you should know to follow commands, to follow orders. Here goes white people. Well, he should have done what they told him to do. Do you not know the law? First of all, you tell someone what you're pulling them over for. You ask them for license, registration, and proof of insurance. Once they provide those things to you, they don't have to get out the car. Even if you ask them to. They don't have to get out the car. They have to, the law states that they have to have a reason, like a suspicion, to search your car or to have you get out of the car. But them just saying get out the car, no, you don't have to do that. So, long story short, they pulled him over because they said he didn't have a tag in the car. Whole time the tag was in the car, taped to the window. I guess they couldn't see it. I don't know. What test do you have to take in order to be a police officer? Because it doesn't seem that it's very hard at all. Because these people can't see. They can barely read. All they know is to shoot. Like, I don't understand it. So the chief of police, Rodney Riddle, says he doesn't think that his officers did anything wrong. Mind you, they pepper sprayed this man in the car and then basically like drug him out the car. He feels that he should have complied a little earlier, but I don't think that they did anything wrong. Are you kidding me? First of all, they pulled somebody over for no reason because the tag was in the car and it was visible. Secondly, you didn't do your job. You didn't follow the protocol. You didn't follow the law. So should somebody drag your ass and pepper spray you out the car because you didn't follow the law? That's what you're telling us, right? Comply. Do what they say. I just can't take it. It's really too much. It's been very overwhelming. And you know what the sad part is? The sad part is there are always going to be those people who say they should have followed the law. They should have done what he said. They shouldn't be criminals because they assume everybody is a criminal. And even if you are a criminal, that doesn't mean that you deserve to die or to be mistreated by the police. That doesn't mean kick my ass because I'm a criminal. That doesn't mean kill me because I didn't do what you said. But there are always going to be those people. And then they pass judgment on black people's reaction to what is happening to other black people in the hands of police. And it's like, how dare you try to judge us on the plight, the pain, the trauma, the PTSD that you have constantly caused and inflicted upon us. White people riot for losing football games. I've literally seen it. Football and basketball. Act a plumb fool. You're rioting about losing a football game, but I can't riot about people who look like me being killed by the police for no reason. Are you actually insane? Yes, you are. But you call me a savage. I'm a savage. I'm a savage? I'm wrong? How? When you all are the same people who threw parties and picnics to lynch black people. You got the same attitude and racism that your trifling ass ancestors had. You're just them. You're not, they don't, it's like they lack a conscience. It's wicked. It's purely wicked. But you know what? I can't waste my time and energy trying to explain systematic racism or racism as a whole to the very people who created racism and systematic racism. You know what it is. They know what it is. At the end of the day, what you don't know is what's going to happen. That's all I have for you all today. Thank you for visiting Ashley Ray TV. If you want to check out some of the blogs or the most recent blog that I posted, which is called Today's Black Activist, it'll definitely be in the description. Please like, share, and subscribe to my channel and share this video. All right. You all stay safe out there and keep your, forms of protection, whatever that may be, whether it's spiritual, whether it's a weapon, whatever you do in order to protect yourself and feel safe, you keep doing that. All right, smooches.